Hi, Commissioner Kawada. Do you want to go ahead and check your video and audio? Hi, Commissioner Aquino. Do you want to test out your audio and video?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Can I mute myself now?
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Papalimo, can we go ahead and test your, make sure your audio is okay?
How's that? I just unmuted.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chair Curtis, can we go ahead and test your audio?
Yep, thanks.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Kushni, can we test yours?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Kawada, can we test out your audio?
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner McAdam,
Yes, hi, does this work?
I can hear you, thank you. And
Thank you.
Commissioner Takanaka, when you're ready, can we also test your audio? Commissioner Takanaka, can we test your audio, please?
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Hi, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Looks like it's about 1:29. (1:30). Prior to the meeting, I announce that the meeting is being recorded. All participants except for the commission will be muted until we take public testimony. All commissioners should make their cameras on for the duration of the meeting. In the event audio-visual communication cannot be maintained with all commissioners participating in the meeting will be recessed for up to 30 minutes to allow staff to attempt to restore communication. If communication cannot be restored, information on reconvening and continuing the meeting will be posted on the Office of the Elections website at elections.hawaii.gov. So I'll call the meeting to order. Ned, could you have a roll call?
Yes, Chair. Chair Curtis,
Yes.
Commissioner Andrion. Commissioner Andrion. Excused. Commissioner Aquino. Commissioner Aquino.
Present.
Commissioner Kushney.
Here.
Commissioner Kikuchi.
Here.
Commissioner Kuwata.
Here.
Commissioner McAdam.
I'm here.
Commissioner Papalimu.
Here.
Commissioner Takinaka.
Here.
Chair Yap quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the February 20th meeting. The commission only needs to approve the draft written minutes of February 20th. The written minutes is the official minutes of the meeting, and the written testimony and recording are only for reference. Is
I
there
move to amend the minutes.
I'd like a motion to approve the minutes first before we amend them.
Chair,
So move.
I'm
Cynthia.
sorry, Ned, what you saying?
I'm sorry. I just want to note for the record that Commissioner Andrion, I see him in the room, so he's not present. Thank you.
Okay, I see Dylan Andrion. Can you say something, Dylan?
Aloha, Chair. Thank you.
Aloha. Thanks for joining us. Now, would entertain motion to approve the draft minutes of February 20th, 2024.
Mr. Chair, Cynthia, I move.
I will second. I will second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the February 20th meeting. Ralph, did you have a amendment to make to that?
I do have amendments. At 2:44, when Commissioner Kushney made a motion to direct the Office of Elections to answer his formal complaint in writing by 7 days prior to the March meeting, it should have read, and postpone the consideration of this matter to the March meeting. So that postponement was supposed to be on this meeting minutes to discuss my formal complaint and the response by the Elections Commission.
Is there a
So
second
that's-
to the amendment?
The second amendment is to
No. What amendment? Make an amendment and let it be all the same. Amendments.
so we're going to continuously do them all or one at a time?
Yeah, no, do them all.
Okay, the next one is please add after Commissioner Takanaka asked Chair Curtis to clarify what the conflict of interest was between AG Reese Nakamura and Commissioner Kushney. Chair Curtis replied, "Okay, well, I'll take this under the table and you can discuss that with Stella direct." Number 9, executive session. There was not a required two-thirds recorded vote taken in accordance with HRS 92.4 before moving into executive session.
Are you changing the minutes?
I'm just saying that we didn't have a 2/3 vote. That should be reflected in the minutes.
Was the vote reflected in the minutes?
It was not.
Did the motion pass or fail?
We didn't have a 2/3 recorded vote.
To go into executive session?
Correct.
Thanks for the clarification. Are there any other amendments to the minutes?
Yes. After the motion to appeal the ruling of the chair was voted on, Commissioner Papalimo and Andrian stated that the adjournment must be voted on, and there was no motion or second to adjourn. Commissioner Kushney made a motion to reappoint the chief elections officer. Commissioner Andrian seconded the motion. With the motion on the floor, Chair Curtis, Commissioner McAdam, and Commissioner Takanaka left the meeting, and a vote was taken to reappoint the CEO. The motion failed. There were 4 no votes: Commissioner Andrian, Aquino, Kushney, and Papalimo. Commissioner Kikuchi abstained.
Is that a change in the minutes?
That is.
Chair, can I say something?
I'd like a second on the motion to amend the minutes for discussion.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to amend the minutes. Yes, Mr. Kikuchi.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify. I did review the amendments that Commissioner Cushy was making. I believe I thought I had left the meeting. I do recall Commissioner Andrian stating that you had left. I believe you had adjourned the meeting. The last thing I recall is shortly after Commissioner Andrian said you were no longer present. I believe I turned off my computer at that point. So my apologies to Commissioner Papalimo, because I believe she was asking me for a response, and there was no response because I didn't hear her question. So I just wanted to clarify that in regards to that particular aspect, I was not present. I did not hear that part of the discussion.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the amendment to the minutes?
Yeah, I just want to say that at that point you had adjourned the meeting, so I don't know how we can make any amendments to minutes for a meeting that had been adjourned at that stage.
Ms. Papalimo.
Yeah, I just want to clarify if I heard right. You heard me calling you, so you were present, but you did not vote. Is that correct?
Oh, Commissioner, what I had mentioned is in the review of the video that was sent, I know it appeared that you were asking me a question.
Right, because your light
and you
was
said there was no response. So
Yeah.
I was apologizing because I was not ignoring you. I thought I had logged out already, and I didn't hear the question that you were posing.
Okay.
So I didn't want you to think that I had ignored your question.
No, we just you were still showing present in the meeting when the question was up. And so we were just looking for a verbal response, and in receiving no verbal response, I think that's why it goes down as an abstention. Because
Any
you
other
were,
discussion on the amendment to the minutes? All those in favor of the amendments to the minutes? Could you do a roll call, Ned, please?
Yes, Chair. Chair Curtis,
No.
Commissioner Andrian,
Aye.
Commissioner Aquino,
Yes.
Commissioner Kushney,
Yes.
Commissioner Kikuchi,
No.
Commissioner Kawada,
No.
Commissioner McAdams,
No.
Commissioner Papalimu,
Yes.
Commissioner Takenaka.
No.
The amendment dies. The motion on the floor is to approve the minutes of the February 20th meeting. Any discussion on those? All those in favor of approving the minutes, draft minutes as circulated? Ned, could you give us a roll call again, please?
Yes, Chair. Chair Curtis,
Yes.
Commissioner Andrion,
Nay.
Commissioner Aquino,
No.
Commissioner Kushney,
No.
Commissioner Kiguchi,
Yes.
Commissioner Kuwata,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdams,
Yes.
Commissioner Papalimu,
Nope.
Commissioner Takenaka.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. Public testimony. Any interested person may submit comments or testimony on the agenda items. Ned, could you announce the procedures of the public testimony?
Yes, Chair.
Point
If
of
you-
information.
If you would like to testify, please click raise hand under reactions on Zoom. If you're joining us by phone, press *9. When recognized, please unmute your microphone before speaking. You may also turn on your video at this time. For the record, please state your first and last name and the items you are testifying on. To ensure that we will have sufficient time to hear all testimony, each testifier will have 3 minutes to testify. Once your time has expired, you'll be asked to conclude your remarks. The first testifier is Ralph Kushney, followed by Rami Donahoe.
I didn't sign up.
Next testifier is Rami Donahoe, followed by Rosemary Josh. All right, we'll move on to Rosemary Josh, followed by Jamie Detweiler. We'll move on to Jamie Detweiler, followed by Judith Wong.
Are they unmuted? Because I see Jamie on there.
Jamie Detweiler? And who
She's
else?
on there.
I'm sorry, I was unable to unmute. So I must have just been given the thumbs up.
Okay, thanks, Jamie.
Aloha, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Aloha, Chair Curtis, and members of the Hawaii Election Commission. I'm submitting this testimony pertaining to agenda item number 5, communications and correspondence. I noticed a number of previous correspondences listed by several residents. I know some of them as well, and I support their testimony as well. My question is, I submitted 2 letters by certified USPS mail and in person as well. So I got date stamps on them from the election Office of Elections. I submitted these directly to Mr. Nago and the Hawaii Office of Elections on November 14th, 2022. All right, 2022, and have not received a response from the Office of Elections or Mr. Nago as of this date, March 19th, 2024, almost 2 years ago. I have repeatedly stated this during previous Election Commission meetings for the past 1.5 years. Why are my correspondences not listed on the agenda? When will I receive a response? Thank you for this opportunity to testify. Mahalo.
Thank you, Jamie.
Chair,
Am I going to get a response to that ever? I mean, no disrespect whatsoever.
Jamie, I always advise people to address correspondence to the commission, to the Elections Commission. That way we get it, it becomes a matter of public record, and we can discuss it at that point. So rather than addressing Scott Nago, if you send it to us, to the Elections Commission, that's where this communication and correspondence comes from.
Okay, so when I submitted them, both via certified mail, as well as I walked it in, why wasn't I directed to do that? And subsequently, during my previous multiple testimonies on every election commission meeting since that time, nobody has given me that direction. So I appreciate that, sir. I have no problem. It's scanned and I have my receipt card, the green card. I have no problem doing that, but I was never given directions to do that. And these were critical issues. I was asking for compliance of HRS 16-42. That's one of the letters. And the other letter was an audit of District 37, where there were disproportionate data following the election. And I was asking for a hand count audit on that. Nobody gave me directions till you just did, sir. So I appreciate that. And I will be sending them, if you tell me where to send it to the commission, I'd be happy to send that to you.
To the Elections Commission, please, and it'll appear on our correspondence. Ned,
Thank you,
next.
sir.
What? You're welcome. Ned?
I'm going to go back to Rosemary Josh. I do see her. And
Thank you.
they'll be followed by Judith Wong.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair. I did submit my written testimony, and I would like to give my verbal testimony regarding the agendas that are posted. And the summary was very confusing. I looked at it after the last meeting and I couldn't really tell what happened. And it wasn't until it was explained to me that after executive session, and I guess it went on until 5 o'clock, from what I saw in the summary, I couldn't tell whether or not Scott Nago was reappointed or not. So could we clear that up? There's probably others that couldn't make any sense of. There were 13 pages of back and forth, and it culminated in, I'm not sure what happened.
In response, I was queried about that too. There was a motion to depose him that failed, and then the meeting was adjourned. I promised to bring up the discussion of the reappointment of Scott Nago at today's meeting, and that's our subject today.
Okay,
Thanks.
so it's a continuation of last meeting that when the motion was made, it was made in the negative to vote not to reappoint. And then there was clarification asked that they need, after the vote, clarification was requested to motion in the affirmative. Am I correct in that assumption, that that's where everything went sideways?
That'll be happening today.
But that's what happened in the last meeting.
The
motion was made not to reappoint, and a vote was taken not to reappoint. Following the vote,
That motion failed. The meeting was adjourned after that.
there was a motion to do it in the positive in that meeting. Clarification was asked to make the motion in the affirmative rather than the negative. Correct?
That's what we'll be doing today. That's not correct.
Well, could you correct me?
I just did. I said the motion to depose him was defeated and the meeting was adjourned.
That's not what I took away from the summary.
I can't help that.
Anybody else?
How much time does she have left, Ned?
Let me check, Chair. I believe, yeah, her time, Ms. Rosemary Josh's time is up.
Would you like to conclude, Rosemary?
Sure.
I think the confusion comes from the video. Correct.
Speaker?
Commissioner Papalimmo, I was just saying that I understand the confusion. If you watch the video, we never addressed a reappointment until we addressed the reappointment in the meeting, and people are seeing that on the video. And so I think that's why there's confusion.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next testifier is Judith Wong, followed by Claire Ortega.
Good afternoon. My name is Judith Wong, and thank you for the opportunity to testify on agenda item number 6, the reappointment of Scott Nagao to the Chief Elections Officer. I am testifying on the behalf of League of Women Voters of Hawaii, a nonpartisan organization interested in good governance. I have submitted written testimony, and I will summarize that testimony here. Members of the League have participated in county and state elections and have worked for many years with Mr. Nagao and the Office of Elections. We've been election observers, participated in pre-testing the voting machines, tabulating votes, recounts, and audits. I personally have participated in these activities on Oahu and was very impressed by the level of security, the attention to detail, the commitment to seeing that absolutely every vote was counted, and the transparency of the process. I want to stress that this process is one of the most tightly controlled I have ever seen. Nothing was done without 2 observers present. Each step was verified, signed for, and locked. I was particularly impressed by the fact that Mr. Nagao and his staff were willing to listen to suggestions made by observers and suggestions to improve on the process and then act on those suggestions. The members of the League that have worked with Mr. Nagao and his office have found him and his staff to be nonpartisan, experienced, competent, and professional. The League itself takes no position on personnel matters involving public employees. However, we do have a position on the importance of clean and fair elections. In our view, the Chief Elections Officer must be nonpartisan, experienced, and professional. Fair elections should never be managed in a partisan manner. Even if partisan persons did not act on their partisan views, given the current political climate, the public would have trouble having faith in their actions. Further, the job must be held by an experienced professional. This is really important. The process of running elections is extremely complicated, as I'm sure you recognize. There are hundreds of steps in ensuring that the voting is fair, accurate, and complete. We, the electorate, expect that every step of the process be run with extreme care. That is not a job that should be in the hands of an inexperienced person learning on the job. It is in the interest of the public that the job be held by an experienced professional. Thank you very much for accepting our testimony on behalf of the League. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wong.
I have a question for Ms. Wong, if that's okay.
Yes. For me, it's okay.
Aloha, this is Commissioner Papalimo. You said you folks made recommendations. And what were those recommendations?
I will give you an example of the recommendation that I saw someone make. One of the steps in the process, please let me know when I'm out of time. One of the steps in the process is to use a non-reusable lock on everything that is secured, the voting boxes, the cages, etc. All those non-reusable locks are kept in a box in the cage, and it's unlocked in the morning, again, with 2 observers present to sign off that they witnessed it. And then those locks are used throughout the day. One of the observers asked that the cage itself, that this box of locks are kept in, be locked during the day, and that every time new locks were needed, that it be reopened again with observers present to sign off on that. Even though this was a redundancy to the safety of using those locks, the staff did make that change immediately.
And that's the one you're familiar with.
That's the one that comes to mind for me. Yes. I can give you another example. It's not so much a change. One of the votes that came in, apparently the voter was quite angry. The person had folded the letter 3-fold, as you would normally do with a letter you were putting in an envelope, and then had glued all of the edges together. The staff very carefully took this apart, very, very carefully. And of course, now the ballot cannot be run through the machine because it's no longer, it'll jam the machine. So with observers present, the ballot was duplicated, and it was signed off that the ballot was duplicated exactly as the ballot was originally made, and that ballot was counted, even though clearly it was not an easy process to do. So those are a couple of examples that I witnessed.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Thank you very much.
Next testifier is Claire Ortega, followed by Steve and Linda O'Neill. Claire Ortega. We'll move on to Steve and Linda O'Neill, followed by Steve Pasnick. Steve and Linda O'Neill. We'll move on to Steve Pasnick, followed by Lori Searcy. Steve Pasnick. Moving on to Lori Searcy, followed by Janet Mason. Lori Searcy. Okay, we'll move on to Janet Mason, followed by Lorraine Larzabal. Janet Mason.
Good afternoon, Chair Curtis and members of the commission. My name is Janet Mason. I've worked as an election observer for both the primary and general elections since at least 2016. I'm summarizing my written testimony about agenda item number 6, evaluation and reappointment of the Chief Elections Officer. Hawaii is very fortunate to have a bipartisan election commission with all of you serving. This helps keep the conduct of our elections independent from partisan politics. And this is a very basic democratic principle. Your January and February meetings were difficult, but I congratulate Chair Curtis for managing these meetings fairly. I accept that all of you are making a good faith effort to conduct a professional, thorough evaluation of Mr. Nago's performance. I defer to your decision about this, but I hope you're interested in the perspective of election observers, volunteers like me, and there are more than 100 of us statewide, because we're the eyes and ears of the public during election operations. Based on my experience over the past 8 years, I'm happy to tell you I have no reservations about Hawaii's election processing. I've never seen a ballot under the exclusive control of one person. I've never seen a mobile phone in the counting center. And because I have participated in the pre-election machine testing using live votes and the post-election testing of real ballots on election day, I'm confident that our ballot scanners work. They correctly scan ballots, and the associated software correctly tabulates the results of voted ballots. All such procedures have been carefully maintained and documented under Mr. Nago's leadership, and all the procedures are the same statewide. Hawaii's voters should have strong confidence that they can register to vote, then vote in a convenient and secure way. Does this mean errors never occur and elections are flawless? It does not. Each election presents an opportunity for process improvements. For example, recounts of close state elections were not even conducted in Hawaii until a law was passed in 2020. And during the 2020 primary election, the Office of Elections incorrectly conducted a recount for the District 20 representative seat when it wasn't necessary. It wasn't until 2024, when Mr. Nago testified at the legislature, that the language for the mandatory recounts was corrected so that there is a standard that's appropriate for both large and small districts. In conclusion, I have seen firsthand steady progress improvements in our elections administration over the past decade. Thank you for the opportunity to present testimony, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Ms. Mason. Next.
Next to testify is Lorraine Larzabal, followed by Steve Pasnick. Lorraine Larzabal. Okay, we'll move on to Steve Pasnick, who will be followed by Robert Hastings.
Thank you, Secretary. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, Commissioners, this testimony is relative to item agenda 7B. As the Commission may recall, during your February 20th meeting, the Commission had a discussion about the implementation of ERIC, in which the Chief Election Officer participated. Following that discussion and vote, the chair stated that, quote, "The Commission is making a statement that we oppose ERIC." 3 weeks later, on Friday, March 15th, there was a hearing in the House Committee on Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs on SB 2240 regarding ERIC. Your Chief Election Officer, Mr. Nago, submitted written testimony and testified to Chair Tarnas that the Office of Elections stands on its written testimony in support of ERIC. In his written testimony, Mr. Nago did not acknowledge nor note the decision by the Elections Commission opposing ERIC that occurred during the February Elections Commission meeting.
What?
As you know, per HRS 11.1.6 alpha, the Chief Election Officer is appointed by the Elections Commission, and per HRS 11.757, the duties of the Commission are to advise the Chief Election Officer on matters relating to elections. I have questions for the Commission. How is it possible that despite the Elections Commission opposition to ERIC and the advice you gave to Mr. Nago in opposition to ERIC, that Mr. Nago then submits written and verbal testimony to the legislature in support of ERIC and the system that the Commission voted in opposition to implement? Does the Elections Commission consent to Mr. Nago's testimony to the legislature in support of an election system that the commission voted against implementing? Does the Election Commission consent to Mr. Nago's intentional disregard to the advice provided by the commission? When is the commission going to stop letting Mr. Nago dictate the conduct of elections that are being actively questioned and challenged by the people? Or even when he dictates an opposite opinion on election matters being opposed by the Elections Commission? As you know, 2 votes were held during the February Elections Commission meeting, and Mr. Nago's reappointment failed during both. Mr. Nago's reappointment failed with a tie vote not to reappoint, and also failed through a subsequent vote to reappoint him as a chief election officer. Ignoring the amendments to the minutes, and with this discussion, it is apparent the commission is also ignoring proper parliamentary procedure and the requirements of HAR 5-1-22. Commissioners, leadership starts at the top. And when it comes to elections, you are the top representatives of the people. Please honor your oath and the duties that have been entrusted to you by the people. If you vote to reappoint this chief election officer, you are endorsing Mr. Nago's blatant disregard for the authority of this commission, his failed track record that now claims the lowest voter participation on record, and for the people's lost confidence in Hawaii's elections. With that, I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Pasnick.
I have a question, Mary. And maybe this question should be to our chair. Did we not submit to the legislature that the commission had voted not to recommend Eric?
I don't believe the commission did any testimony to the legislature.
Isn't that the job of our chair to do that once the vote is taken?
I think the record is, the public record is available to everybody. If you want to advocate for something, you're welcome to do that. I think our position against Eric was the statement that we made that's available for everybody.
So, but the chief elections officer does not represent us, so we would have to do it separately.
The commission is a separate entity. Yes, ma'am. The next.
So,
Ned?
The next testifier is Robert Hastings, followed by Steve B. Robert Hastings. We'll move on to Steve B, followed by Jade Brown. Steve. Okay. Moving on to Jade Brown, followed by Charles Amsterdam. Jade Brown. Okay, we'll move on to Charles Amsterdam. I believe he's testifying.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Yeah, I'm Charles Kauai Yochanan, Amsterdam. I was thinking there was a patient that came before the doctor and asked, how is he doing? He said, the doctor said, well, I got some good news and some bad news. The good news is you have 2 weeks to live. Can't see anything. And the patient says, 2 weeks to live, is that good news? And the doctor says, yeah, the bad news is I forgot to tell you 2 weeks ago. Well, we would like our elections to have some good news, even better news than that particular account that happened. I can't see. Where am I? You're in here, but I want to acknowledge I was invited to come by and to participate, encouraged by the Republican Party, our general members of the community are Hawaiians and Jews. I'm a Hawaiian Jew. First, I would like to emphasize and support the motto of Hawaii, Ua mau ke ea o ka aine ka pono. The pono in there is means also to be fair, to be moral, to be righteous, to be good. And so the fairness of the elections is provided for our commission. So members of the commission and the fellow associates, members of the community or friends, aloha again. Also, it's very important responsibility that is being advanced by our commission to keep the elections fair. And so I acknowledge your work and encourage you to keep up the good work. A second aspect I think that is very important that I wanted to touch upon is that the elections are to elect good people and to those good people to advance good bills. Bills that have been either passed or in the docket include abortion, which Hawaii was the first state to pass abortion, child kidnapping. HB 2079 is in the docket right now. Legalizing America, SB 3335. Same-sex marriage, gambling, human trafficking, imposing curriculum on schools. What is happening here? Open borders, defund the police, easy on crime. Again, imposing curriculum without parental input. What happened to the American committee so that you have the teachers and the parents have an association together? So I think it's very important that we not only have fair elections, but those people who we elect should be people of moral character, advancing and continuing our moral values, our good values, our fair values. And instead of, I'm sorry, what?
Thank you. Your time's up. Thank you very much.
Next testifier is Helena Ngo, followed by Peter Baldwin. Helena? We'll move on to Peter Baldwin, followed by Terry Yoshinaga.
I don't see Peter.
Peter. Terry Yoshinaga, followed by Cindy Pang. Terry. Okay, we'll move on to Cindy Pang, followed by Jacqueline Nakamura. Cindy Pang. Jacqueline Nakamura, followed by Mike Nakamura. Jacqueline Nakamura. Mike Nakamura, followed by Melissa Iona. Mike Nakamura. Melissa Iona, followed by Alice Abelanida. Melissa Iona. Next up, Alice Abelanida, followed by Joanne Ochi. Alice. Joanne Ochi, followed by Joe Pacheco. Joanne Ochi. Move on to Joe Pacheco, followed by Alex Akui. Joe Pacheco. Moving on to Alex Akui, followed by James. Alex Akui, move on to James, followed by Vivek Castella.
You know, Ned, if you don't see him here, let's go to the people with the hands up here.
Okay, Chair.
Well, there aren't names on all of these things, so that's hard to tell.
Yeah.
We'll call on Lorraine Knipp. Lorraine Knipp. Call on Kayla Kawamura. Kayla Kawamura. Mark Masunaga. Mark Masunaga. All right. David Silva. David Silva. Selena Salau Hitchcock. Selena. Joy Dillon. Joy Dillon. Next testifier, Barry Lynn Sakamoto. Barry Lynn Sakamoto.
Then let me ask Andy Crossland. That's his name.
Okay, we'll move on to Andy Crossland.
Good afternoon, Commission. I will be testifying today on item 6 of the agenda related to the evaluation and reappointment of the Chief Election Officer, Scott Nago. As I made clear in my testimony during last month's Election Commission meeting, Scott Nago is ultimately responsible for the administration of our elections, including all tasks he has chosen to delegate to each of the counties. This is stated in Hawaii Revised Statute Section 11-2. I would now like to show a short 1-minute video with a non-exclusive summary of just some of the election issues we have experienced under Scott Nago during the past 2 election cycles.
During the 2020 elections and the primary election of 2022 in Hawaii, we have learned of and witnessed many irregularities, rule-breaking, statistical anomalies, as well as admitted and demonstrated lack of required competence and errors made by officials during the election process. This ranges from mailing errors in the thousands, signature verification issues, unexplained mismatched official data releases, early deployment of ballot boxes that were left completely unmonitored, failure to register voters through the DMV process, voter rolls that are admittedly filled with up to 100,000 deadwood voters, and proof of ballots being sent to properties for voters that do not reside there, computer voting systems that are not fully secured and tested, and a complete lack of knowledge in managing technology and technology vendors. Past vote record data that can help verify if any computer fraud took place, not being available or unusable, and therefore seemingly not being utilized by officials, or made available to the public for that matter. Data showing that Joe Biden received more votes in the 2020 presidential election than Barack Obama in his home state. Secrecy of the ballot not being ensured for in-person voting. U.S. Code election record retention requirements not being met, as well as Hawaii statutory rules regarding audits and chain of custody being broken.
Scott Nago's maladministration of our elections process has compromised election security, voter confidence, and transparency, which has resulted in the lowest voter turnout in Hawaii history for the 2022 election, as now shown in the background on my screen. When is the Elections Commission going to start exercising their authority over the chief election officer? Scott Nago is an at-will employee of the Elections Commission, and he takes direction from you, not the other way around. As Steve Pasnick stated earlier, he defiantly ignored advice of the Election Commission by testifying in support of SB 2240 last week to enroll Hawaii in the ERIC database, which the Elections Commission voted unanimously to oppose during the last meeting. Scott Nago is an insubordinate employee of the Elections Commission, and his incompetence has destroyed the integrity of our elections in Hawaii. I conclude and strongly urge all members of the Elections Commission to vote no on Scott Nago's reappointment so the commission can begin interviewing qualified, diligent, and honest candidates for the position as soon as possible. With that, I yield.
Thank you.
Next testifier is Thomas Stanton.
Mahalo, Tom Stanton, Kauai Election Integrity. I would also urge you to vote no on reappointing Scott Nago. I thought Steve Pasnick's testimony was very telling. It seems very disingenuous to testify in front of the legislature on something that this body voted down. That goes along with a pattern of behavior that I've seen. Scott Nago has actively tried to work against accountability and transparency, in my opinion. On Kauai, you are all very well aware that we have had multiple issues with ballot chain of custody. They're absolutely irrefutable, provable, and Scott Nago and the Office of Elections, and frankly, the majority of this body, have not tried to help us resolve that. So just on that case alone, he should not be appointed or reappointed. And I also wanted to say this body's not wanting, I should say the majority of this body not wanting to reflect the actual events of the last meeting are disappointing. And yeah, just disappointed. I do have a question for this body and Scott Nago in particular. We have proven without a doubt that our elections division cannot give us accurate ballot chain of custody numbers in our elections. But in the report that Scott Nago submitted, the report on election security, he has numbers for Kauai. They're adjusted mail turnout numbers, and I would sincerely like Scott Nago to tell me if our elections division can't provide those numbers, how is it possible that the Office of Elections has those numbers to do the overage and underage report? So I'd like the commission to answer that question for me, and also Scott Nago. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. It's not a question and answer period. You could perhaps ask that in writing for a response, but Ned?
Next testifier is Anne Marie Hamilton, followed by Hui Ho'ola'aina.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anne Marie Hamilton. I'm a concerned voter from Kauai. I would like to direct everyone's attention to the fact that there is an elephant in this Zoom call with us. This elephant is called no chain of custody in Hawaii's elections. The commissioners appear to not want to see this elephant, so they ignore it, meeting after meeting, pretending and voting like it's not there, but it is. The public spends a good hour or so talking about this elephant, pointing to the elephant, describing the elephant, giving evidence of the elephant, but the commissioners continue to ignore the huge creature like it's not even there. But it is, and everyone except the commissioners can see it. So that everyone on this call is aware of the elephant I am speaking of, I'm going to give you evidence of the elephant so that you can see it for yourself. Grab a pen and write this down. Go to website verifiedvotekaui.com. Verifiedvotekaui.com. This website shows the written proof of which I speak that shows actual emails from a top election official where she admits that Kauai has not been following chain of custody in their elections. She admits to it in an email in black and white. This is your elephant. So I would like to use my remaining time to ask Mike Curtis, the Election Commission Chair, to explain his reason for voting against investigating the chain of custody issue in the last 2 meetings. Mike, could you please enlighten us as to what, if anything, would compel you to vote to investigate the lack of a proper adherence by election officials to the chain of custody law in Kauai? I give Mike Curtis a chance to answer this question, please.
Thank you. That's contrary to the League of Women Voters testimony, who had two people watching every step of the way on Oahu. Lyndon Yoshioka, the Kauai guy, admits that there are instances where 2 people aren't there, but they're rare, and I haven't seen it in my experience.
Do you know what chain of custody law is, Mike? Do you know what it involves? Because that's not what it involves. It's written documentation of the possession of the ballots. Written documentation.
Signed off by 2 people every step of the way. Yes, I do. Thank you, Anne Marie. Next.
Next testifier is Hui Ho'ola Aina, followed by Carl Dick.
Hello, my name is Jarek. I'm on the Big Island. And to the testifier before me, the answer is because Mike is corrupt. Okay, listen, guys. Chair, do you know what is organized crime?
Public sector or private?
What?
Nothing.
Oh, funny. It's a joke, yeah?
Yep.
That's the kind of chair we have representing our elections. Really. Shame on you. I asked you to resign. How do you sleep at night? Oh, wait, I know. The white envelopes that you've been getting. Listen, it's no joke, man. Corruption is sickening. And you, the guy hitting that right now. I appreciate all the other commissioners who voted to amend the minutes. Because everything they talk about needs to be on record. But when you corrupt, you want to hide everything. Those that voted to not pass that amendment, you guys are all corrupt. Shame on you guys. I live on a Big Island. And why is our county votes, why our ballot is on the same as the state's ballot? Yeah, I'm in opposition to Nago. And so is the commissioners who voted not to pass him. Why are you guys voting on it again? Simple. Because you're corrupt, Mike. It's sickening, man. People that's not born and raised in Hawaii like yourself bring politics to our Hawaii that you ran away from, where you were living. Shame on you, bringing your corruption here. You need to resign. You're not fit for the job. Our county clerk, don't watch my time. Don't worry, I got my time. Our county clerk is now trying to be corrupt like you. They already voted Aole. If you don't know what that means no to Nago. This is irritating, man. Try to do something right. Have you done anything right in your life, Mike? Seems not. You need to resign. We urge you to resign. We didn't elect you. We the people, the taxpayers, we expect you to resign sooner than later. You're a horrible chair for the election system. And Nago is a horrible chief for our election system. There's no fair and secure election in Hawaii. Put everybody back voting in person. That's the best thing you guys can do. Find out who really gets elected. I'm done.
Thank you.
Next testifier is Carl Dick, followed by Adriel Lam.
Aloha, thank you for letting me speak. I'm sure it's no secret that I'm opposed to Scott Nago. Over the past 4 years, I have at least 15 or 20 documents or documented photographs of only one person collecting ballots. I have videos of one person collecting ballots. I have a list of 30 violations allowed by the Office of Elections. I've filed repeated court cases against the violations of the Office of Elections. The Attorney General's office supports this crime and these violations and the corruption, and the judges support these violations and corruption. I took it all the way to the United States Supreme Court, and they did nothing. Nobody's doing anything. And I take it to the legislature. I took it to the Senate, and nobody seems to give a darn about our elections. So Hawaii is becoming a fifth world country, a fifth world state. It's a travesty, and it's disgusting what's being allowed to happen in the violations in the procedures that are violated in the last meeting and already in this meeting are disgusting and improper and abhorrent. This needs to stop. We need some accountability, and I'm not going to stop until it's taken care of, and I will continue to fight for the elections, because if we don't have proper, fair elections, we don't have a society. And we don't have a government. We don't have a legitimate government. We don't have anything. Nothing is legitimate in the state of Hawaii at this point, because there's nothing validated. It all starts with elections. And if you can't elect good people in an honest, fair, tight process that we can depend on, it's all worthless. It's all completely worthless. And I've fought for the last 4 years of my life, and my family has sacrificed for this. I've lived this day and night for the last 4 years, and it's getting worse by the day. And I had hope for the new commissioner or the chair of the election commission, and we're getting some pushback, but this is disgusting, folks. Anybody that thinks our elections are fair and tight and secure is smoking something that I don't smoke, and it's got to stop. It's got to stop. And I'm not going to give up. If Scott Nagle is reappointed, I promise you, I'm going to take it to the court again. And I have all the evidence. I have all the recordings, and I have the minutes that are not matching the recordings. And I'm going to keep fighting until I get my right of redress heard by somebody in this country, or I'll take it international. With that, I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Dix.
Next testifies Adriel Lam, followed by Keikilani Kealoha.
Hello, Chair. Thanks for the opportunity to testify. My name is Adriel Lam. I've testified many times previously about the data record on our elections and the problems we have with it. And I'll address my testimony today with, agenda item 5, where we talk about state and county responsibilities. It's nice to see that there's a division of labor, but what we seem to be getting here is just that, division of labor without accountability. It's a dependency on the other to provide the numbers or validation for the others, which in essence is a codependency. It's dysfunctional. You don't have accountability between two systems to verify that we have the same numbers, and we're seeing that within the data record. I provided you 2 documents just now, unclear ballot and also writs of certiorari before the Supreme Court, that in unclear ballot, a bunch of undergraduate electrical engineers from University of Michigan were able to change the ballot images on ballots while they were processing. They did it for an entire election. 279 milliseconds to change a ballot when it took 352 milliseconds to actually process the ballot. They did that on all the systems, including Hart Verity systems that Hawaii uses. Now, I heard the testimony of League of Women Voters talk about how secure they have. Do they have someone that's looking at the security of our systems, electronic systems, our technology? Who's their consultant? Who is the one that's validating and checking that part of the system? We have the writ of certiorari before the Supreme Court of the United States that is testifying that decryption files and access data were out in the open for anyone to have access to have a backdoor to our systems, to get into a system and change things without anyone be detecting, because they had the backdoor and it's not part of the login system. Who is checking these parts of our system? I've provided testimony and data on gaps in our system, gaps in our data record, duplications of our data record that shouldn't be there. And there's other more testimony coming where our chain of custody, especially the sealing of records, is not taking place. Where are the signatures of people opening seals, closing seals, reopening seals, closing seals? That is not there. All we have is a sealing of the records at the end of the day. And that's what we're supposed to be accept. That, hey, that's how elections are. Those are your results. Deal with it. In the olden days, before we had elections, how did they settle disputes? You drew a line in the sand and you chose which side you want to stand on. We do not want to go back to that. We want to have free and fair elections. We want to have trust in our elections. Please do something to fix our elections here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb.
Next testifier is Kekiulani Kealoha, followed by Rochelle Thompson.
Aloha, my name is Kekiulani, and I'm speaking to agenda number 6. I'm in complete opposition of the reappointment of Scott Nagle. I'll start with stating that in 2022, a lawsuit that I helped file with the Hawaii Supreme Court included petitions signed by many concerned registered voters from the Hawaii Island, Oahu, Maui County, Lanai, and Kauai, all in support of the complaint we filed related to the 2022 State of Hawaii election. That complaint included but was not limited to the following issues: the state of Hawaii's Office of Elections violating over a dozen Chapter 11 Hawaii revised statutes, and there were complaints statewide by registered voters and election volunteers for the following concerns: an appearance of inaccurate reporting, ballot mishandling, ballot design components, breaches at counting centers and ballot deposit sites, discrimination, voter suppression, media violations, including the Hawaii State Office of Elections releasing a commercial stating that there would only be mail-in voting and no voter service centers would be open. And I'm sure we all remember that text message that we received prior to the election that our vote had been received and was later reported as a test. Yet they had not made any registered voter aware of such a test. On August 4th in Maui, a ballot counter volunteered experiencing ballot tampering. On August 13th, there was another election observer who witnessed a security and compliance breach while receiving ballots from the Maui County Service Center. On August 13th, on Hawaii Island, an election observer witnessed the existence of a server room with questionable cables, cords, unidentified servers, seemingly compromised vendor equipment, which was connected to Hart's elections operation system. The staff tried to get them to discourage volunteers from making formal observations and attempted removals of observers with inquiries. And I'm not sure if you remember that 9 years ago, 800 votes from Maui vanished on election nights, and Scott Nagle was the chief election officer. 11 years ago, under Scott Nagle, there were reported issues on voter registration cards and errors on absentee ballots. There was a shortage of ballots that caused him to go under investigation, yet there was no disciplinary action. 13 years ago, 1,600 ballots were misprinted, again, under chief election officer Scott Nagle. This is insane. He's had 20 years to improve the elections, and we still have seen the lowest voter turnout in Hawaii. When are we going to learn? Hawaii has suffered for too long, and we are obviously displeased with the majority of officials that are currently in office. It is imperative that we have a true and fair election for the future of our children, and it will not be so until we have him removed. I yield.
Thank you.
Next testifier is Rochelle Thompson, followed by iPhone.
Good afternoon, Chair Curtis and members of the Election Commission. My name is Rochelle Thompson. I'm the Deputy County Clerk for the County of Maui. Been in the job since January of 2023, and I would like to testify in strong support of our office's position and for retention of Scott Nagle as the Chief Elections Officer. We believe that the continuity of operations on a statewide level and on a county level is critical, especially as we are currently in an election year. And we are, as you all know, actively in the thick of things now with candidate filing and moving on to preparations for the primary and then on to the general. We believe that Scott and his team have a proven track record of success, and most importantly, of providing continuity across the islands and across the counties so that all of us function as a cohesive unit in upholding the law and in conducting safe, fair, and responsible elections. As I mentioned, Scott has built an excellent team at the State Office of Elections. Without question, they have been, since we took office in these positions, extremely helpful in providing training opportunities, opportunities for collaboration with the other counties and the State Office of Elections. These types of interactions are invaluable as we all strive to uphold our duties as elections officers. One of the things I wanted to address is voter turnout. Voter turnout isn't the responsibility of one individual or one office. It's the responsibility of all of us. Most importantly, it's the responsibility of the American voters. So how do you address voter turnout? One of the things that I can point to that was directly at the initiation of the State Office of Elections is following the Lahaina fires in August of 2023. The state came to us and proposed an outreach to the voters in House District 14, which includes Lahaina and the entire section of Maui Island. That involved mail, radio, social media, and print outreach. And it was a very effective campaign in reaching those voters who have been displaced, not only displaced from their normal, voting atmosphere and their, the things that they are used to participating in, but they have no homes. Their addresses where they may have received a ballot, those have been disrupted. So it's very important for us to reach out directly to them, to each one of those voters, and to make sure that we have their updated information and that they know that they can still continue to vote and elect people into the state seats from Lahaina. So that was an outreach effort directed by Scott Nago and his team from the state. So I want to just bring that up as one component of outreach and cooperation that we have received. We have submitted a letter under the County Clerk Moana Ludi's signature. It's also signed by myself and our senior elections officials here at the County of Maui. And we are all in strong support of the retention of Scott Nago.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have a follow-up question for you, if you don't mind. Since we're on the subject of chain of custody, HR.
No. This is public testimony. This is not a question and answer. We go to the.
Everybody's doing follow-up questions, Chair. Could I ask her a follow-up question, please?
Not about chain of custody. We'll get that at the next meeting. We'll do it in depth. Can I have the next speaker, please? Ned?
Hello?
Hello.
My name is David Callahan. I'm calling in from Kauai. I'm against the reappointment of Scott Nago. And I pretty much agree about everything that most of my predecessors who brought up their issues against Scott Nago, so I don't have too much to add to that. But I do believe that we can't go on the same path. And if anyone thinks that we're all good and gravy and honest and everything is, pono, that's a illusion, because corruption kind of is right up in our face. Everything that they brought up is proven fact. And if you can't show the public what's going on, then something's nefarious going on behind the scenes, because anything done in secret is pretty much evil, And right now, it seems like we're a communist state, really. I mean, how long has one party been in office? So really, they're going to stay in office forever? You really think that people don't get unsatisfied with the voting? I voted my whole life, and everyone always said, no sense you vote. no count is corrupt. They're gonna put in who they like. And you know what? In a sense, those people are all right, because of people like the commission. If you guys pass it after we voted no on the first time, it's gonna really smell, and people are gonna really think that it stinks, you know. And I'm gonna say that, like how you have politicians should have term limits, I think Nago shouldn't be reappointed, because someone in there too long already knows the ropes, and it's so easy for him to pull all the strings he needs to. And as far as the commission, how long do you guys stay in? Can you answer me that?
Yeah, 8 years, 2 4-year terms. Term
2
limit.
4 terms. I think that needs to be pretty much shortened to 1 4-year term. And because the damage done by right now testimony coming out how great Scott Nago is. I mean, you know, corruption is easy. People nowadays, everybody sells their soul for money. You know what I mean? And just check out all the politicians, whether it's our nation, state, county, they're enriching themselves. They go in with nothing and come out with whatever. Go and do the research, you know? So anyway, long story short, I just want to say I'm against Scott Nago getting reelected. And I think our democratic voting system is pretty sad. We're like a third world country, man, a banana republic. Thank you. I'm out.
Thank you. Ned, you there?
Hello.
We'll call Moana Ludi.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Chair Curtis and Election Commission members. As you know, my deputy also pointed out, my office did support written testimony in support of Scott Nago. And what you'd note from that letter is that our entire senior election staff also signed. And what I think is important to know about that is that these are people that have been doing elections for years under Scott's guidance, along with his staff. And we all support Scott and his team in guiding us through this presidential election. What you may not know is that all of the clerks in this state regularly meet. Scott provides training to all of us. Sometimes it's from outside groups or agencies. We had one just a few weeks ago here on Maui that was phenomenal. It was about security of the elections. And it was taught to us by various high-level retirees out of the federal agencies and a clerk from the mainland who is also retired. That teamwork is what will get this election through. And although last time after my testimony, I was informed that if Scott were removed, it wouldn't be until February of 2025, telling him today that he wouldn't be reappointed is the equivalent of a termination date of today. And the reason for that is who would go through a presidential election that we are now facing, knowing that come February, you don't have a job. I don't know all of Scott's situation. It's not my business. But for anybody else, you'd be looking for another job rather than focusing on an incredibly stressful time. So what I'm asking this commission to do is to keep this team together. Obviously, we're going to work hard towards these elections. It'll never be perfect, but we strive for that. And just allow us to do this job. And if there's critiques that need to be made after it's been done, then please let us know what they are. We're always trying to improve. And to do that with the head of our team, it really needs to be Scott Nago. So I'm really appealing to you to please leave him as Chief Election Officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ludi.
Next testifier is Wallen Christian, followed by Steve Yoder.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I come here to speak as a citizen and a resident of Hawaii. Although I am running for office, that's not the issue here. What I want to read to you really quickly is 2 things. And that is, and I'm sorry because I'm trying to pull it up on my phone. Mr. Nago began work in the state election office in 1998. He became a chief election officer in 2010. Most of you will know this. Some of us don't. That's going on 14 years in what he's doing currently. Unfortunately, I've seen, being a voter of Hawaii, a lot of corruption, and it may not have only been him, but unfortunately, because of the position he holds, he's responsible for that. And so you have people coming up to you and testifying and writing in and on social media stating that they are not in confidence of this man running the elections office. Commission, I ask you folks to really look at this in a clear manner. It's not about having somebody at the head because we have elections coming up. That's the issue. He's here, he's been here, and we have seen failure after failure after failure. That needs to stop now, regardless if we have to start from scratch, bring somebody in who's going to be fair, who's going to be voicing of the people and not his own position. What we have to do now is we have to rebuild exactly from where we're at. Coming into this election year, it's vitally crucial because of everything that we see going on in the state capitol. I go in the state capitol on a weekly basis and I testify, whether it's in person, whether it's by Zoom, whether it's by written testimony. I see a lot of this corruption of what's happening on our government level. This position here is considered a government position, guys. And what's happening now is that he has been complacent in this position because he's always gotten the approval of a few. Well, you have the majority speaking in opposition of this. And as a commission, I beg you guys, well, actually, I'm sorry, I don't beg you. I urge you folks to do the correct job and to not reappoint him. And I want to read one more thing. Scott Nago is the Chief Election Officer for the state of Hawaii, Office of Elections. The mission of the Office of Elections is to provide secure, accessible, and convenient elections to all citizens statewide. We've seen a failure in that in the last election in 2022, where we had these mail-in boxes, drop-off boxes. They were not secured. They were not being watched by security 24/7. We have seen nationwide how they have people putting in other ballots in there, numerous ballots. Okay, the mail-in, I'm against mail-in. Why? I cannot confirm that Joe Blow is Joe Blow. We need to have a valid ID with the person in front of us doing the voting. So with that, I appreciate it. I am totally against this. I hope that you guys make the right decision for the people. Mahalo.
Thank you.
Next testifier, Steve Yoder, followed by iPhone.
Thank you. And I want to make mention that there's at least 12 plus people here from Kauai, and I really appreciate their concern for voter integrity and the issue of Scott Nago being reappointed. I'm against Scott Nago's reappointment, and I'd like to bring up the reasons why. I forget who it was, brought up the idea of his experience. His experience has been from 98 to 2018 with a person who's voting in person, signing a sheet that says they are who they are, showing a voter ID, photo ID, I might add, confirming that they are who they are, and they vote. No one has had experience. So his idea of it being experienced is totally incorrect. We've only had 2 election cycles, 2020 and 2022, that involve experience. Experience is simply time served. It's much like a person who's waiting for parole to get out of jail, a convict. I'm not accusing him of being a convict yet, but it's all it is. It's just time served. It means nothing. Many people who serve in Congress have been experienced. They've served there a long time, but they're scallywags. They're scoundrels. Secondly, I want to address Rochelle Thompson's voter confidence. If people doubt, and the reason why it's been going down, it's not because of one person. If people doubt, their vote counts, which is purely and most assuredly illustrated today. There's at least 12 people from the smallest county in our state who are on this meeting. We doubt it. Why do we doubt it? Because not Scott Nago, but Ralph Cushney went to the trouble of discovering incongruencies in our votes. Chain of custody, 10%, more than 10%, 10% plus, Chair Curtis. Our numbers don't relate for the county of Kauai with the state. How can that be? How can they be off that much? That's enough to turn any election. Elections are turned with 1 or 2 or 3 votes, let alone 10%. And also I want to mention, go to Janet Mason's mentioning of convenience and security. The very idea that we make voting convenient takes away from security. I personally contributed in going to the Office of Elections to find a ballot by a person who lived in Princeville, and it was chasing him around the country. This was in the 2020 primary. The Office of Elections here in Kauai gave me the ballot. So right now, at that moment, that ballot is tarnished. I took it to the person, he voted, he stuck it outside his door. It was during the time of where it was shut down. He couldn't come out of his room. I took it and I put it in a ballot box in Princeville in front of the fire station. There's no integrity to this at all. And also I want to say something to the person. I didn't quite catch the name, but the local guy that mentioned that because you're not born and raised here, you don't have a voice in the subject. Well, of course we do. You know, I've been here since August of '65. Scott Nagao has been born and raised here, and I would not trust his integrity over mine.
Wrap it up.
So with that, I yield. I'm wrapping it up, Chair Curtis. I'm very
you.
disappointed in you. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Next testifier is iPhone, followed by Rami.
Aloha. Hello. Aloha.
Aloha.
My name is Forrest Callahan. Just another concerned voter from Hawaii. I'll keep it short and sweet. I strongly oppose the reinstatement of Scott Nago for numerous reasons and facts as previously stated, especially because of the earlier quote, elephant in the room, chain of custody. And I'd like to commend Ralph second, all he's done. And thank you, Ralph, for keeping this commission and board of people accountable. I've witnessed in this short time, people bring up corruption, and I've seen people make jokes about corruption, especially on the commission. And I'm specifically referencing Mr. Curtis. We do not find that funny. It's a very serious subject, talking about corruption these days. And as far as the elephant in the room, I know exactly what Anne Marie is talking about firsthand, because as soon as Ralph asked the question about chain of custody, you immediately shut him down. So if anybody else is paying attention, I think Ralph should get a chance to come back and ask that question, because I saw other people ask questions like you said. So why shouldn't he get the opportunity to ask that question? So again, I oppose the reinstatement of Scott for his bad track record and not following chain of custody. And that's it. I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next testifier is Rami.
Aloha, good afternoon, Elections Commission. In regards to Agenda 6, I am against the reappointment of Scott Nago. It is time for change. He has had 20 years to improve the voting process of Hawaii. There have been vanished votes, tons of errors, and a shortage of ballots. We need transparency. I beg you for transparency. There is never a good time to break up.
FaceTime him. Vinny cannot even FaceTime.
Hello?
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Okay. I was just gonna say there's never a good time to break up, move on from someone, but you can't postpone the breakup. This just encourages complacency. We have a duty to remove people who are not doing their job with fidelity. The data doesn't match, okay? We can't say, oh, he fails. Let him stay because it's hard to remove him at this time. Next year, do we keep him again because, oh, it's Christmas. Oh, it's Valentine's. We must keep him. It's Easter. We must keep him. Oh, it's going to be elections again. That's why we're moving now. It is Scott Nago's time to move on. I thank him for his service. And I just think it's time for him to move on. Thank you. I oppose his reappointment. Aloha.
Aloha.
Next testifier is iPhone.
Aloha. My name is, can you hear me? I'm trying to fiddle with this Zoom.
Yes.
Okay. My name is Belinda Jacobs, and I represent an organization here in Hawaii, proud to be in Hawaii, the Christian Counseling and Research Centers of America. We help get grants often for the homeless. But I used to be an IT person, and I was hired by the predecessor to do the computers actually in the Manoa area precincts. And so we were the troubleshooters. And I was actually on board when Scott came on board with the Office of Elections. And in the area when we had precincts and you could verify with voter ID, we didn't have the COVID going on. Things seemed to be really secure. And I was hired eventually as one of Scott's troubleshooters, where we kind of are Q&A at the systems. Since then, when we've had mail-in voting, I worked as a poll watcher, the primary elections at Honolulu Hale, and then was not invited back for the general election, although I could have probably pushed for it. I was really surprised that the majority of workers were from mainland China, one of whom I know, Wendy, is trained in the English language, quite skilled with her English language, from Shanghai. And that's because the elections do not require that you have to be, you can have a green card. You don't have to be a US citizen. Was concerned about people working in the back office. And this is no slur on anyone who is, my relatives here in Hawaii have Chinese heritage. I'm just concerned about influences from a communist regime, the CCP. But the back office also, people tend to be very skittish, like they're afraid coming in out of the back office of Honolulu Hale. So I don't know who's monitoring, who has their hands in our elections, but chain of custody, I've seen numbers from a friend of mine. He's a statistician for the Cancer Center, Emil, who's on this call, where the numbers were just crazy. New Year's Eve had 1,000 votes, where the elections hadn't even started yet. This is, again, the primary of, would that be 2020? And then they had enormous votes. And so people stormed the elections office expressing their concerns. And I believe to date have received no answers on anomaly counts. So I think when there were more controls in place, our elections had the confidence of the electorate, where the people could go in and show ID, prove their residency. And Hawaii is so interested in their elections, they wouldn't even mind a hand count. Get the machines aside. Honolulu Hale has Wi-Fi. We don't know, what, no one's monitoring the traffic going over the Wi-Fi if it's an abnormally large, meaning data points are transferring. So it's become, I think, an unraveled mess. So much so that I really want to take a look at when the laws changed in Hawaii concerning our elections, going back, and who actually was involved in changing Hawaii's laws. Anyway, Scott, we love you, but I think it's time for at least a fair election where all candidates are put up and weighed against, and an opportunity other than just only Scott on the talent available in this community. As an IT person who've set global standards in the state of Hawaii, as the tech lead for the United States Marine Corps for their messaging systems, worked through 9/11, I did both Camp Smith and K-Bay, did the classified networks. I don't trust anything going on. Matter of fact, I was scolded if I had to ask a question of the Hart contractor as a poll watcher. That's just horrible. Okay, so anyway, thank you to all the hardworking people, but I believe we can do better. Aloha.
Aloha. Ned, is that all?
Yes, that's it, Chair. I just want to note that the remaining participants who have their hands up, Steve Pasnick and Rosemary Josh, they've already testified.
Yeah.
Looks like we have another testifier, Chair, Boyd Reddy.
Boyd?
Thank you, Chair Curtis. I appreciate that there's strong opinions on either side. My concern is the process of the commission. And I've been observing the last few times, it doesn't look like we're following our own rules and ordinances. We don't have 2/3 votes to go into executive session. We presume executive session when actually that's supposed to be the exception. And we have been, you would think that we knew the term was up some time ago. It's not a secret that the term is up. And yet the person stayed in office after the term was up, and no other candidates were looked into. If you're an employer and it's your job to see to it that you have oversight over the single appointee with very, very powerful influence on our election system, you would think that when the term is up, you'd have some candidates and you'd have a public hearing, especially for that purpose as required in the rules, not just an agenda item. So it just seems like, and then when you get advice from the Attorney General's office, you have conflicted attorneys. And even when one appears not conflicted, the advice given is opposite to the way the way the law reads. So it doesn't look like the commission is entirely doing its job on the up and up. And so that taints the process, and it's not fair to Scott Nago, and it's not fair to the voters. So I think we need to rethink and take a close look at how the commission is operating and treat it as, you know, an arm's length, fair-minded employer is going to decide on who's going to be the person for the next 4 years. And look at some other people. It's just crazy. Why is the presumption you get the same guy? So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ray.
Next testifier is Martin Choi.
Muted.
I think my name may have been called before, but I didn't get a chance to. I wasn't on at that time. So may I do a little testimony?
Please.
Okay, well, thank you for Chair and Commissioners for the opportunity to address this major concern. I'm going to just read from my testimony in the interest of time. So my understanding is that we, the people, pay your salaries to be our public servants. So this is going to be an analogy, which I feel is correct. Normally, the person who pays the salary of a worker is either the employer or contractor. A legal written agreement had to be made, or a sworn oath taken, or even a verbal covenant agreed upon in this work situation. In the case of our government, you would swear to uphold the Constitution, and that becomes our legal document between the employer, we the people, and you, the public servant. So if you do not agree to our Constitution, Declaration of Independence, and Bill of Rights, then we have no contract to pay your salaries. As we look around the world, the only other government that describes the situation where the payer of a government's salary is forced to pay without any agreement or any recourse to correct or remove an unacceptable public service provider's work is a dictatorship, which the Declaration of Independence says is our duty to do. I would like to know, in the interest of transparency, what each commissioner and public servant believes in which form of government we have. If it is a constitutional republic or democratic republic, then why aren't we, the people, allowed to correct what we deem to be any inadequate services to the public. We're just simply trying to correct what we, the people, see as something that's out of order. I don't expect that the public servants will respond in this limited time we have. So it becomes a rhetorical question, and your actions will reveal your responses. But I would like to address what Moana Luti said before, that there's a shortage of time and we don't have enough time. So I would say we do, because I was a district chair for the Republican Party, and our caucus director, Andrew Walden, stepped down, and we only had about a month and a half to get things together. And we did it with all volunteers in that period of time. It was a tremendous success, and we can do it again. So I say that's a moot point to say that we can't do it in a short time. We have plenty of time right now. We learned quite a bit in such a short time. All volunteers. Thank you. I yield the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Choi. Any other speakers, Ned?
No other.
Chair,
Chair.
can we take the ones that still have their hands up, please?
That I've already spoken? No. Ned?
No other testifiers, Chair.
Thank you. Item 6 is the discussion of the evaluation of the reappointment of the elections officer. I would like to move this item to be after the executive session and included in the vote to approve the discussion regarding the executive officer, Scott Nago.
Why?
I'd like to go to executive session now to approve the minutes of the prior executive session, as well as to hear from Scott Nago personally, rather than to subject him to public scrutiny in the public afterwards. And I would like to have the commission discuss his reappointment, if any, in open session. Are there any objections from the commissioners to that approach?
I don't understand what you're saying.
I want the commission to discuss the reappointment or not Scott Nago in open session rather than in executive session. Executive session, I'd like to discuss with Scott directly, but when we open discussion among the commissioners, I would like to have that in open session. I don't think there's a need to have that in executive session.
What are we asking? What are we asking, Mr. Nago?
That would be an executive session. We'll discuss with Scott Nago in executive session, then come out of this executive session and as a commission, discuss the motion on the floor, the reappointment or not of Scott Nago.
So are we not following the agenda?
We can follow the agenda, but we can have the discussion of the evaluation and reappointment of the chief election officer. We'll have that in public, in open session right now, and then we'll go into executive session.
Are we not following the communication and correspondence?
I think we're past that, communication and correspondence. Would you like to discuss something there? Ralph, just for your information, I had hoped to have the chain of custody discussion fully at the next meeting. But it's up to the commission.
I'd prefer to have that now before we make a decision on whether Mr. Nago is going to continue with his job.
Chain of custody, according to the state and county responsibilities, becomes a county issue.
Right. He oversees the counties.
Well, the clerks oversee the counties, and our control of the clerks apparently is through each of the county councils. I don't think we have any direct control over the county clerks.
So HRS 3-177453, The clerk shall maintain a complete and current count of all marked sense ballots issued, spoiled, and received in their county. The counting of marked sense ballots by the clerk should be recorded on forms prescribed by the chief elections officer.
So right there shows that he oversees that.
He defines the forms that they make the reports.
Right. So if he's doing that, then if he's doing their training, if he's doing their oversight, then he's in charge of that. They may be separate, but they all fall under the state chief elections officer.
And that's why I brought up the 2024 state and county responsibilities, as well as the prior responsibilities that are a little easier to understand.
So I think we need to discuss this, Chair, in accordance with the agenda.
Yeah, I follow the agenda.
I would entertain a motion.
It's already on the agenda. What are we motioning for?
What motion are we discussing?
We're talking about an agenda item.
An agenda item.
Okay. I would entertain a motion for the sake of discussion. What do you want to accomplish from this discussion?
We just
I
want to
move
have
that the Elections Commission adopt the rule in accordance with HRS 11-7.53 that requires county clerks and the chief elections officer to individually certify under penalty of perjury the chain of custody was maintained in accordance with HAR 3177-61 and HAR 3-177453.
So is that a motion?
Yes, I move that the Elections Commission adopt a rule in accordance with HRS 11-7.53. That's the rule that allows us to adopt rules. That requires county clerks and the chief elections officer to individually certify under penalty of perjury the chain of custody was maintained in accordance with HAR 3-17761 and HAR 3-177453.
Is there a second?
Second, let's do this.
Okay. Ralph.
For discussion.
Yep.
Mike, this is Stella.
Yes.
The statute says that under HRS 11-7.5.
A point of order, Chair. Point of order.
Excuse me, Ralph.
That
I got a point of order.
Stella has the floor. What rule am I not following in your point of order?
Well, we have to ask the Deputy Attorney General if we want to listen to something. She can't just jump in on the conversation.
I'll ask for Stella's comments.
Actually, I wanted to prevent the commission from voting on something that is contrary to HRS 11-7.5, subsection 3. It says that the Elections Commission can adopt rules pursuant to Chapter 91. Now, that is an entirely different process from adopting a rule by motion in a sunshine law meeting. Chapter 91 requires a whole slew of procedural steps and would result in a HAR amendment.
So that's the procedure that I want to start by making this motion.
Rules do we have to have a meeting to do our rules? Is that what you're saying? What does 91 say about the rules?
91 says that if a board has the power under the HRS to make or to adopt admin rules, that they do so through.
Can you read me 91, please? Can you read me?
Wait,
No.
let her finish, please.
Chapter 91 is quite lengthy. You can look it up by Googling Hawaii Revised Statutes, Chapter 91, and you'll see it has many, many provisions.
about rulemaking.
So I'd like to make this clarification. HRS, I'm saying in accordance with HRS 11-7.53. Okay, so I'm going to amend this to say HRS 11-7.5, which includes the rulemaking within Chapter 91.
As long as you understand that by making a motion to adopt a rule at this meeting, you are not adopting that rule.
But we're going to pursue adopting it in accordance with HRS 11-7.53, which says adopt rules pursuant to Chapter 91.
Okay, and are you wanting to change or add to something in the HARs for the Elections Commission?
I want the elections officers, the county clerks, to certify that their elections are being done properly, their chain of custody is being followed under penalty of perjury.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, Cynthia.
Are we off agenda on this one?
Discussion of the ballot. Yes, I believe we are. Except Ralph made a point of that this was we were on communication and correspondence.
Correct.
Of which he recorded issue with the chain of custody that he's addressing now. And this is in the communications and correspondence that is part of the agenda. This is still part 5, part B. Communications and correspondence is where he's bringing this up under.
So we have to start the process somewhere to go through Chapter 91. And I'd like to finish up with what I was talking about with chain of custody. So in the last meeting, we made a motion to request.
Wait, Ralph, the motion on the floor is to have the clerks certify the chain of custody under penalty of perjury.
So I move that the Elections Commission adopt the rule.
You've already made a motion and a seconded. Now we're just.
I'm gonna finish it so you understand what I said.
Okay.
In accordance with HRS 11-7.53, that requires county clerks and chief elections officer to individually certify under penalty of perjury the chain of custody was maintained in accordance with HAR 317761 and HAR 3-177453.
That was seconded.
That was my motion.
Ms. Papalimo.
It was, yes.
And then I'd like to start discussion when you're ready for that.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so in the last meeting, we made a motion to request chain of custody documents for the counties. I wrote an email to the Elections Commissions, yourself, Akapli, Ms. Bueno on that. And I'd asked for a copy of that email that was sent out or letter that was sent out. I don't know how the counties were notified, but I'd like to get a copy of the letter that you wrote to the counties.
Now the counties in favor or against the motion, Ralph?
I'm for it. I'm giving you my discussion on the motion. I'm for the motion.
You're asking more questions. Are you for or against the motion?
I'm for the motion. Let me finish what I'm trying to say here.
No.
So
you're asking questions.
The counties.
What's your opinion on the motion?
The counties responded, and you did not make that public, their response. So here are my observations reading the replies from the counties.
Wait a minute. How does this apply to this motion?
I'm giving you my discussion on the motion. We can discuss up to 10 minutes on the motion.
You're adding other stuff, and that's my.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm discussing the motion on why we should approve the motion. And okay. I'm allowed to discuss why I want to approve the motion.
Yeah, you're offering your discussion, please.
Yes. Great. So here I am. I'm talking, but you keep on interrupting me.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Why?
Here are my observations reading the replies from the counties. The County of Kauai has not responded to the Elections Commission requests. And I know firsthand that they are not even aware that there is a law requiring chain of custody documentation. County officials have not addressed the chain of custody process from drop boxes until the time of signature verification. The city and county of Honolulu has no accounting for number of ballots collected from individual drop boxes. We do not know if observers were present at collection sites. There is not a daily reconciliation of the number of ballots collected and held by the county leading up to the transfer of ballots to the state. Now, Carl Dix was saying he has videos of county employees by themselves picking up ballots in the middle of the night with no observers present and no accounting of how many ballots they picked up. So to continue on, when ballots were transferred from the city and county of Honolulu to the state, there were no observers present and only one representative from each office signed the transfer slip. The county of Hawaii and Maui also make no mention of daily documentation and reconciliation of ballots received via mail or picked up at drop boxes, nor do they have a summary of how many ballots they gave to the state that could be cross-checked later. The number of ballots picked up from each drop box should be documented on a form prescribed by the chief elections officer. The county of Kauai has this form, but they don't use it. And I'm not sure if the other counties have this form. And I'm gonna ask this question. How are elections, it's a rhetorical question. How are elections certified if we don't know to the answer to this question on the Office of Elections website? And I pulled this from the website. How do you ensure elections officials don't throw away our ballots? Ballots are always, this is the Office of Elections answer. Ballots are always transported and processed in the presence of official observers. Official observers serve as the eyes and ears of the public and monitor that election officials are maintaining the security and integrity of elections. Additionally, the number of ballots received and counted are reconciled at the end of each day to ensure there are no discrepancies. And this is not being done. And this is what I want the county officials to be responsible for under penalty of perjury.
Accountability.
Any other discussion?
I would like to say why I approve of this and why I seconded this.
Please.
I was an observer for the last election and witnessed ballots being picked up from a service center, box unlocked, loaded into a car, and one person getting in the van to drive it. And I stopped it. And I said, no, ballots always have to move in dual if you're doing chain of custody. And he said, oh no, it's short. That's right. We're just going across the street. It doesn't matter where you're going. It's what you're supposed to do. That's the transparency for the people to see in public that it's occurring correctly, right? That's what gives them faith. And so they brought somebody else out from the service center to ride in the van. Now, had I not done that, it would have not been done properly. So we know now that if there isn't somebody willing to step in and stop them and say, hey, this is how you have to do it, that they're going to do it whatever way they want. And this is why he is asking for accountability in these things. Everybody is saying the counties aren't responsible and the state is not responsible and Scott Nago is not responsible for the counties. So by having them having to sign under penalty of perjury, it gives them thought process that maybe we should be doing this correctly. Maybe we should be following the law. Maybe we should fill out those forms daily, because now they will be held personally accountable. Now, Will it ever happen? I don't know. But this is why this motion is so smart. I love it, Ralph. Because our people are screaming for integrity and transparency, and this helps do that. And it allows us to go through 91 and do that.
Thank you. Is there any
So,
other discussion?
I'm in support.
Discussion for support, but I think Commissioner Takenaka is also raising her hand.
I was before you, Dylan. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Cynthia.
No, I just put it up a little while ago. So, I'm sorry. Ralph, is there any way that you can send us what you were reading off of a few minutes ago? Did that come in with any of your materials that we got via the office?
It might be on the correspondence and communication link.
That whole thing he was reading?
That was on the website. He said it was reading it off the website. The one at the end.
That's on
No,
the
I just wrote
website,
this
Ralph?
up. I just wrote this up. I can email it to you, but I don't, there's a whole nother subject on that. I don't know, when I email stuff to get sent to the.
Ralph, just this question. She wants to know what you were reading at the end. Did you get the website? You said you got it off.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so if you go on Office of Elections website, go under voting and then security. And then you go down, scroll down to the bottom of it, and then you come up 3 questions from the bottom.
But is that what you were reading off of?
Yes, that's how do you ensure elections officials don't throw away our ballots? That one? That's on the website.
You were going through a whole spiel of things. Is that what you were reading off of the website?
No, that's what I have written out. The end of it. Yeah.
Any chance we can get what you were reading that you wrote?
Certainly.
Can you send it out to Ned and so that we all can see it? I'm really uncomfortable about talking about this issue today. I really want to see more material. I know you guys been harping on this, but we really haven't had a nice not a nice, but a more coherent discussion on it.
The public's been talking about this
to do it next month. I mean, you listed a whole bunch of stuff today.
The public has been talking about this for 2 years. So to defer it another month makes no sense. You're losing the trust of the public.
Other discussion on the motion?
Well,
Discussion for support, Chair.
Please, Dylan.
I just want to, I'm going to be supporting the motion by Commissioner Kushney, and I'll just remind our commissioners that, one of our most fundamental and basic things that our commissioners are responsible to do is to investigate concerns that the community brings before us. And so we've had that opportunity, I think, on 2 separate occasions now to initiate an investigation regarding chain of custody. And, at both times, the investigation motion failed. And so now Commissioner Kushney's brought us another opportunity to approach this at a different angle. And I think it would behoove us to not entertain it and to move forward with it. Otherwise, we should go back to seeing an investigation open on chain of custody. And then I would like some clarity on the way we should be communicating, or the way that Commissioner Kushney should be disseminating information, because I have received a lot of material, and I'm curious if maybe the other commissioners just aren't getting that. Where is the breakdown of communication? I do think there's been enough material for us to make a decision on this today, but if other commissioners aren't getting that material, then there's a breakdown in communication somewhere. So I'll be supporting the motion on the floor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dylan. Any other comments? And I would ask that I would call the vote on this question, and I would ask Ned to start the roll call.
Commissioner Andrion,
Yes.
Commissioner Aquino,
Yes.
Commissioner Kushney,
Yes.
Commissioner Kikuchi,
No.
Commissioner Kuwata,
No.
Commissioner McAdam,
No.
Commissioner Papalimu,
Yes.
Commissioner Takinaka,
No.
Chair Curtis.
I vote yes, and I intend to have this as a full meeting on the agenda next meeting. So that motion carried. Discussion and evaluation of the reappointment of the chief election officer. I'm gonna have the commission's discussion in open, but I'm gonna invite Scott Nago to join us in executive session. And then come out and discuss it in public. Unless the commissioners seriously object.
I object.
So you don't want to have the discussion in the open.
I want to have the discussion in the open, but we don't have to ask Scott Nago's permission.
As a employee, he has the right to have his discussion in private, and that's what I intend to have. So when we go into executive session to consider the minutes of the last executive session meeting and discuss and evaluate the performance and reappointment of chief elections officer with him in executive session. After our discussion with him, I would bring it out to the public and have our vote and our commission discussion in public.
I'd like to make a comment, Chair, please. I'd like to make a comment, Chair.
Sure.
So Mr. Nago does not have an expectation of privacy for his evaluation.
No,
It says
our
very clearly.
evaluation is public.
Let me finish.
His discussion is private.
Let me finish, please. Under 11-7.5, the Elections Commission shall hold a public hearing on the performance of the chief elections officer and consider information gathered at that hearing in deliberations of the chief elections officer. He has no expectations of privacy on his evaluation. So for him to say that this should be in closed session and have that authority, the commission may, under a 2/3 recorded vote, go to executive session, but Scott Nago cannot require us to go into executive session.
Okay. Is there a motion to go into executive session for the discussion of Scott Nago, as well as to approve the executive session minutes of February 20th? I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So move.
There a second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor of going into executive session?
You said discussion.
And nobody talked.
I did. I was trying to talk and then you were going on. So
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I do have a little bit of discussion about your motion, only because you've put two things in there. So one is to
As per the agenda.
session for the minutes, the executive minutes,
Yep.
and then it was separate, right? A reason to go into executive session for, what was your second reason?
Pursuant to section 92, whatever it says on your agenda, it says section 7B, pursuant to section 92F5A2 HRS, Commission anticipates going into executive session to discuss and evaluate the performance of and the reappointment of the chief election officer.
Right, so can I make a suggestion that you change your motion so it doesn't have two things attached to it and just do them individually?
No.
I agree.
Point of order, Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Stella, doesn't Mr. Nago have that right to be in executive session? Or he did, or
Yes, he can waive it if he wants, waive the executive session. but I don't believe that he has done so.
He has not. I answered.
I would like your writing and your opinion in writing, Ms. Cam, because that's contrary to what the law says. The law says we decide if we're going into executive session. So what I hear you telling us is that we have to.
No, you would vote to go into executive session, which is why I think the chair was calling for the vote.
Okay, so that's different from what you said.
No, what I said was that Scott Nagle has the option of making, of electing to have his evaluation done in open session. But the commission always votes to go into exec session. So if there is no successful motion to go into executive session, then you don't.
And then we discuss it in the open, correct?
Well, you discuss in the open what's on the agenda.
Well, we're talking about HRS 11.7.5 to hold a public hearing on the performance of the chief elections officer and consider information gathered at the hearing in deliberations on the chief elections officer reappointment.
And that's the hearing, although I guess it's more like a meeting, and that's why you have listened to the various testimony and have had the discussion with continued discussion as indicated on the agenda.
So I think the commissioners are confused. We
Very.
want to know, do we have to go into executive session or do we have the option to do this?
You vote to go into executive session.
So we need a 2/3 recorded vote, correct?
Correct.
And so if we don't go into executive session for the discussion with Scott Nagle, then it stays public.
No.
Correct.
No, the agenda item for open session is the discussion about between the commission members about Scott Nagle. But Scott would not be part of the discussion.
Participant, right.
So we would not be able to ask him questions in public. We could do that in executive.
Correct.
I disagree with that ruling, and I would like you to put that in writing, please, and submit that to the commission.
With the law that states that we cannot do our deliberations in public, yeah.
No, we can do our deliberations in public, but our discussion with Scott at his option would be private unless he wants to make that discussion public. He has the right to privacy as an employee. He has the right to privacy as an employee. So the motion on the floor is to go into executive session or not. Ned, could you do a roll call?
Yes, Chair. Commissioner Andrion? Commissioner Andrion?
Question, I'm sorry, question before you poll us. There's
what is the
two
motion?
parts to the executive session. Are you polling us for both or one at a time?
We're going
Under Article 7, there's an A and a B.
That's right.
So I suggest you poll us separately. 7A and then 7B.
That was my suggestion. Just do one thing. The one thing that you want to.
We did excuse me, Chair, we did the exact same thing last month, going into executive session.
Yep.
And we got to talk to Scott there.
Yep.
The public wants to hear everything we're talking about, and there's no right to privacy, no expectation, because it says right in the statute that we're going to do this in a public hearing.
That's right. If we want to discuss with Scott, we'll do it in executive session. Outside of executive session, Scott won't be a part of it. So the motion on the floor is go into executive session.
Chair,
Ned?
real quick.
Yep.
I'm actually very confused right now, and I'm going to be abstaining from the motion, which I believe, but anyway, are we just skipping 6 altogether? Where agenda item number 6, I feel like we're just moving past that, right? And going straight into trying to get right into executive session is what it sounds like.
I think that that point comes further as well as in Article 9. I think that's a duplication. I think discussing the evaluation and reappointment, I think would start in executive session and then would come out where our discussion and our vote is concluded.
So you want to change the agenda?
Not particularly. There's a motion on the floor to go into executive session. Do you want to go into executive session or not?
Well, I have another comment, Chair. I'm sorry. So
Yes,
are
ma'am.
you saying you want a motion on agenda number 7 before we go into number 6?
I think number 6 is part of number 7 and number 9.
No.
No,
We-
it should be separate.
Okay. But the motion on the floor right now is executive session. And I would ask Ned to do the roll call for that one.
Commissioner Andreon,
Nay.
Commissioner Aquino,
Nay.
Commissioner Kushney,
No.
Commissioner Kikuchi,
Yes.
Commissioner Kawada,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdam,
Yes.
Commissioner Papalimu,
Ole.
Commissioner Takinaka,
Yes.
Chair Curtis.
Yes.
Motion passes.
No, it doesn't. You need 2/3 vote.
Right. Motion fails.
It's 5-4, yeah.
Yes.
So you don't, it takes more than a majority to go into executive session?
2/3 recorded vote.
Okay. Then out of executive session, I would ask for a vote to approve the executive session minutes of February 20th, 2024.
I make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention? I'm sorry, Stafford, you said no? Did somebody
No,
say? Okay, abstention, motion carries. So now we're number 9. Summary of the,
We're at 6 now.
we just voted on number 8.
Right, but because you didn't
And
do
number 6 and number 9 are the same thing.
6, no, 9 is a summary of the criteria. It is not discussion of the evaluation and reappointment. 2 separate things.
I don't see that.
It's written right there. One
I
says,
I know the words are different, but the meaning is the same. Summary of the criteria and key points of the evaluation of the chief executive officer. Elections officer. Vote on the reappointment of the elections officer.
summary of what criteria? The criteria that come 5 or 6?
What criteria do you have? Is the criteria in number 9 is the same criteria in number 6?
Chair, how can you have a summary if we haven't had a discussion?
Exactly.
That's right. That's why we're going to have a summary of the criteria and the discussion there. Number 6 and 9 are the same.
Then why did you include them separately on the agenda?
Oversight.
I
So,
disagree. I think they have to be separate.
I think they have to be separate. Because the public is allowed to be involved in that discussion of the evaluation and reappointment.
They've already offered their opinion.
But they can also raise their hands and offer more during
No,
discussion.
This discussion is commission. It's not public.
It is public.
It's available to the public, but
Commission.
I'm not going to allow the public to offer comments beyond what they've already offered. This is for the discussion of the commissioners.
Okay, let's start the discussion of the commissioners then, number 6.
I've got a point of order, Chair.
What rule am I not following?
Well, we
can change the
have
agenda.
not advertised this meeting in accordance with HRS 11-7.5.
It was
This is a
published,
special session
overruled.
to hold a
Your-
public
your Point of
hearing.
order is invalid. Next. And you know what? I would like to have a motion on the floor to either reappoint Scott Nago for another 4 years.
I
and then we
move to
can discuss
postpone the
all of this stuff.
motion. I move to postpone the motion to reappoint Chief Elections Officer until a properly noticed meeting, public hearing has been held in accordance with HRS 11-7.5, and the Chief Elections Officer petitions the Elections Commissions for reappointment in accordance with 11-1.6F.
Your point of order is overruled.
No, I made a movement.
That
I
was a
moved to
motion.
postpone. Do I have a second?
So what was your motion?
I moved to postpone
First
the
of all,
motion,
you made a point of order, and that was overruled.
and you told me it was out of order, so I made a movement. I made a motion.
Your point of order was overruled.
Right,
Now-
and then
now
I
you
made
can
a
make
motion.
if you want, if it's according to the agenda.
I made a motion to postpone the motion to reappoint the Chief Elections Officer until a properly noticed public hearing has been held in accordance with HRS 11-7.5, and the Chief Elections Officer petitions the Elections Commission for reappointment in accordance with 11-1.6F. The public hasn't even heard from Mr. Nago that he even wants the job.
He told us last meeting he did.
The
Not the
public has
public.
not heard from him. This is an election for the people.
This is a commission election of an appointed position.
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
You don't have a motion on the floor. Your point of order was overruled.
I move to postpone the
For the
motion.
discussion of the evaluation and reappointment of the elections officer.
I would like to discuss. So if you're going to ignore his motion, which is
No,
what it
I
looks
need a motion on the floor to the effect of number 6. If you're gonna appoint him or not, then we can.
I move to postpone the motion.
and that was the
What
motion. you
motion
did.
are you postponing?
The motion to reappoint Chief Elections Officer until a properly noticed public hearing has been held in accordance with HRS 11-7.5, and the Chief Elections Officer petitions the Elections Commission for reappointment in accordance with 11-1.6F. That's my motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Mike, this is Stella.
Yeah.
I'm unsure whether Commissioner Kushney's motion is in actuality to amend the agenda.
I'm moving to postpone the until we have a proper notice meeting in accordance. We're violating the sunshine law. We have not noticed this meeting properly. HRS 11-7.5 is never mentioned anywhere on the agenda.
The reappointment of Scott Nago is on the agenda, and it's been
You,
duly
you,
noted.
you don't reference the statute. It's not done properly.
The statutes are there for everybody's knowledge. You don't have
It's
to-
not on there.
You don't
You
have to
only talk
specify.
about what's going into executive session.
And let's see, number 9, the summary criteria for on the vote on the reappointment of the chief election officer. That's number 9, Ralph. That's on the agenda, and that's public.
Where do you mention 11-7.5?
It's a matter of public record.
Okay, but this is a regularly scheduled meeting and we're holding a, buried in the executive minutes, you've got a special public hearing that's supposed to occur and it's just buried in there. It's not a proper notice. So I'm just saying, I move to postpone. We can vote on this until we do this properly.
There a second, any more discussion?
So the
Could you have a
motion
roll-
is,
Could you have a roll call on that, please?
But
Ned?
Chair, I had a question, Chair.
Yes.
I thought we had the discussion in large part last time, and we were actually prepared to vote last time, and the expectation was we would take the vote at this meeting.
That's correct.
So why would we postpone it again?
It hasn't been publicly, it's buried in the regular session meeting. It should be a special public hearing, standalone issue. And the whole notice is just buried in the executive session agenda.
Odd, number 9 states otherwise.
but number 6 is the same as number 9, right?
Okay, so it's both publicly noticed. I'll entertain a vote on this motion. Ned, would you roll call, please?
Yes, Chair. Commissioner Andrion,
I need you and
Aye.
I need your insight.
Commissioner Aquino.
Sorry, Ned, could you repeat the motion?
The motion is to move to postpone the motion to reappoint Scott Nago until a public meeting is held in accordance to HRS 11-7.5.
And I vote yes.
Petitions for reappointment.
My vote is yes.
Commissioner Kushney,
Yes.
Commissioner Kiguchi,
No.
Commissioner Kawada,
No.
Commissioner McAdam,
No.
Commissioner Papalimu,
Aye.
Commissioner Takanaka,
No.
Chair Curtis.
No.
Bailey's house.
So we're back to.
Chair, I'd like to make a new motion to reappoint.
We're back. Oh, you want to do item 6 or item 9?
Well, it's one and the same, right? Item
Okay.
9, I'd like to make a motion to reappoint Scott Nago by a 2/3 vote as our chief election officer.
That's
Second.
changing the rules. A majority is all it takes.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Excuse me,
Yep,
excuse me.
Cynthia.
What is the motion?
That it
The
takes a
motion is
2/3
to
vote
reappoint Scott Nago with a 2/3 vote.
And who says we need 2/3 vote?
Dylan Andrea.
501.
I'm sorry, 5501? What?
No, you can pick up Malia first.
The motion was
And then are you
to require a 2/3 vote, a 2/3 vote to reappoint Scott Nago. And there was a second?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Then could you do a roll call, please, Ned?
Commissioner Andrion,
I wanted to meet with a couple
Nay.
of them for
Commissioner Aquino, Commissioner Aquino,
No.
Commissioner Kushney,
Yes.
Commissioner Kiguchi,
I'm sorry, can we get clarity on this? Because we're
Dylan,
voting
We're voting already on your
to
2/3.
reappoint on the 2/3 vote. Okay, thank you.
No.
Commissioner Kawada,
No.
Commissioner McAdam,
No.
Commissioner Papalimu,
Aye.
Commissioner Takanaka,
No.
Chair Curtis.
No. So Dylan, you could make a motion to reappoint him with a majority.
So I recognize that we didn't have discussion on that motion either, but I was
Exact-
voting, yeah, if I could have explained my motion more, I was voting, that was the vote right there, was to appoint him with a 2/3 vote. And so that would have failed and he would not be appointed by the way that the members just voted on that.
Clever, but not close enough. I would entertain a motion to reappoint Scott Nago to another 4-year term effective February 1st, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Moved by McAdam and seconded by Kikuchi to reappoint Scott Nago to another 4-year term effective
Chairman.
February 1st, 2024.
Mr. Chairman, I will yield to Mr. Kikuchi, but I seconded the motion.
Oh, I'm
This is
sorry.
Kawada.
My apologies, Commissioner.
sorry.
I didn't hear you.
Mr. Kawada seconded. Discussion.
Okay, I'm gonna start the discussion because I'm a little, I'm incredibly angry to know that you called us into a meeting, you asked us to vote on Eric, and yet you took no, you did not go to the legislature to share that, and neither did Scott. And Scott, knowing that the commission did not want Eric, still went and testified for Eric. And I'm livid about that. I cannot tell you how upset I am about this. If you felt, and I'll tell you why, this commission votes very, very little, where every single one of us agrees on something, and where every single one of us agreed to not support Eric.
I don't
And
believe
then
it was unanimous.
elections officer goes to the legislature asking for it. That to me is just a failure of our chair, because you did not go and represent the commission. And if you couldn't do it, you should have asked for somebody to go and represent the commission, because it was going to the legislature.
That's the second erroneous statement, that it was a unanimous decision. It was not unanimous.
What was, please?
As well as this commission being advisory, we don't write rules and regulations. We advise the Office of Elections.
We
And that
have
was
the
our
power
right.
to do it. We have the power under 11-753 to write rules and regulations.
Okay, we didn't do that, and your prior motion was in effect of that. Right now, we're discussing the reappointment of Scott Nago.
No, right now I am discussing the fact that the commission made a vote and we were not approving Eric. We were not putting our support behind it. And our chief elections officer went to the legislature in support of it.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Please.
I'm sorry. Kahiolani, you've made your point. Do you have other points to discuss?
Yeah.
Okay, can we move on? Thank you.
You don't think that's important, or you just want me to?
You discussed it already. So if you have other things to discuss, I'd appreciate it.
Well, in this discussion, let me recommend to our chair that if he brings us in to vote on legislative pieces and he cannot find the time to go to the legislature when they're discussing it, please ask for a volunteer, because I'll do that. I have no problem representing the commission in something that we sat down and voted on at the legislature.
Thank you.
So I volunteer my time for that next time. Number two, we have had discussions for 2 years. We have had people come to this commission asking for answers, writing to the Office of Elections for answers, not being answered for 2 years, not being answered. No communication whatsoever from our chief elections officer to our constituents, our people. The people are asking questions and communication is zero, they're saying. They are saying. Not I'm saying, they are telling us They're not receiving any communication back. That is part of his job. And so we're wanting to reappoint him to a job that he's not doing, that he blatantly defied us. That's just defiance, because he could have easily gone back and said the commission doesn't want to do this. So the Office of Elections is not going to support it. And then I have other examples. We have to remember that we're not only talking about the last couple of years of mail-in balloting. We're talking about the years when there weren't enough ballots printed, where outer islands ran out of paper, where mistakes were made on ballot. This is a long, long line of problematic elections that we have had under Scott Nago's reign. And here we are being asked to just rubber stamp it again. Why have we not called for people to apply for this position? We're hiring for a position, and yet the commission has never asked for other people who would be interested in it. It's like you're just civil service, just running them through without giving anybody else opportunity to show that they have experience to do this type of thing. And it was kind of how we got our chair. We had 7 people apply. We never spoke to each of the nominees or put their names up for voting. We didn't vote on a slate of people who wanted that position. The first motion for the chair, came when we were talking about the first person nominated. And so this is what I'm talking about. What are we doing? What are we doing? If we're looking for somebody to have this job, why aren't we asking people to apply? Why are we just, there's something with this commission that just wants to roll it over and not look and see if we have others that would be interested. I mean, if you can have 7 people apply to be the chair of a commission, just think how many people would apply to be the chief executive officer. I think we limit ourselves and our constituents when we don't have that offer. And we don't allow people.
You made your point. Thank you. Are there other discussion?
Yes, Chair, I do.
Yes, Ralph.
So I would like to build on her comment that the fix is in, and Mr. Nago is not even able to.
Ralph, when you say the fix is in, you're insulting everybody participating here, and you're insulting the employees at the county that are doing their best to make this election straight. When you say the fix is in, you're insulting everybody. Please continue, Ralph.
So Mr. Nago can't even be bothered to petition the Elections Commission and to let the public know why he should be reappointed. So he's not even applying for the job in the public. He only can do that in executive session. What are you doing to the public trust when you do that? We should at least require him to petition us and to make that a public document saying, I want my job because whatever it is. It's clear to me from the testimony that we've heard that the public does not want him to be reappointed. Now, the people in state and county positions do, but the public does not. Now, under our duties of the election review program, we're supposed to establish policies for the administration of an elections observers program to include ensuring the validity and reliability of election results. The public has no faith in our in our election results. The procedures that are put in place are not giving anybody any confidence. When we eliminate the paper ballot audit, there's no confidence in it. When we're doing mock tests, like having people count paper ballots and then say that ensures that there's no hacking done to a computer. There's no procedure, no IT person would ever put that IT policy in place to check a computer. We need real IT people looking at what the algorithm is. None of this is being done. And again, I'm going to say the validity and reliability of election results. The public has no confidence in this, and we're going to slam this through, and everybody has zero confidence. And if we do this, it's just going to continue to erode confidence. We need to find somebody new. Thank you. I yield.
Other discussion? Claire?
Chair, we have Commissioner McAdam with her hand raised.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dina. Yeah, I just want to say, and I think it bears repeating because I did mention this last month, that I think it's insulting to everybody when you talk about the public and what the public wants, that it's important to remember the people that do attend and give testimony and spend their time at this meeting don't represent the public. The vast majority of the public are happy with elections because they don't come here and complain about them or provide testimony to contrary to that. I would also like to mention that we have had a lot of testimony today from not only members of the public, but from people who have worked both with and for Scott Nargo. And I think it's important for the Commission to remember that this job also is not just about being the Chief Elections Officer and the face of the elections in Hawaii. It's also about managing the team of people that he has. And from the testimony that's been provided to us, it seems pretty obvious that the vast majority of the people that work for him respect him and that he's a good manager. And I think we should bear that in mind when we're taking this vote. And that's just what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Claire. Other discussion?
Mr. Chair, it's Cynthia. Can I?
Please.
So, in regards to the Eric vote last month, that bill was moving through the legislature, is my understanding. And let's face it, we don't review every single bill that the elections office testifies on, yay or nay, support or not, or, you know, so to keep on this whole Eric thing, it's him doing his job. We don't direct his everyday work. And to me, that's part of his everyday work. Going to the legislature and testify. He felt that the Eric program was a good thing for Hawaii and move forward with it. The legislature is moving forward with it. And I don't really know if the legislature knows about it or even if they are really concerned, because I think they have enough faith in him to know that if he's decided to go with this program, then it's okay. So, he's doing his job, and that's part of his job, going to that building with the puka in the middle. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Other discussion? Hearing none, let's call for the roll call vote for the reappointment of Scott Nago for 4 years.
Commissioner Andrion,
Nay.
Commissioner Aquino,
Yay.
Commissioner Kushney,
No.
Commissioner Kiguchi,
Yes.
Commissioner Kuwata,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdam,
Yes.
Commissioner Papalimu,
No.
Commissioner Takinaka,
Yes.
Chair Curtis,
Yes,
motion passes.
thank you.
What a sad day. And Ralph, just to let you know, I was not offended.
I was. Is there any other discussion, any other business before the commission?
Yes. To ask, why was the Eric thing brought to the commission for us to vote on?
I brought it because I had concerns with it.
Do
Entertain a
you
motion
think
to adjourn. Dylan, you want to move to adjourn?
No, I have
I'll
a quick
move to
discussion
adjourn.
since you asked for it.
Second,
I have a comment, Chair,
Wait, wait,
and I was
did-
able,
Did somebody make a motion?
there's no motion on the floor and I have a comment.
no,
I'm
there
trying
was
to
a
answer.
motion on,
Mr.
there was a
Kawada?
motion made.
Did you make the motion to adjourn, Mr. Kawada?
If, I thought Cynthia did and I seconded
Okay,
it. However,
okay.
if Cynthia didn't
Cynthia
make the
moved to adjourn.
motion, I'll move.
Jeffrey seconded. And discussion.
Discussion, Chair.
Yes, Dylan.
I wonder if before we adjourn, obviously, Mr. Nago has been here for the meeting and has heard both sides. I wonder if we can get some closing remarks from him if he'd like. You know, I think moving forward, this team has to come together. And I can see, you know, we've all kind of showed our hands and where the cards lie. But I do look forward. I'm committed to working with this commission and the public to bringing higher accountability to this whole process. And if because Scott Nago is the person that has been reappointed, Scott, you do have my support, but I want to see us be more accountable with things. I want to see us do things right. And I know the public wants to see that too. So, Chair, if that's okay, I'd like to invite him to say some closing remarks if he'd like.
I would like to make a comment building on that also, please.
The motion on the floor is to adjourn.
So we're having a discussion.
On the adjournment.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm going to build on what Dylan said. I'd like to work with
address the motion of adjournment, which is on the floor and is available for discussion.
Before we adjourn, I would like to encourage
no on the motion. Ned, could you call a roll call on the motion to adjourn?
Yes, Chair. Commissioner Andrian?
Aye.
Commissioner Aquino?
Aye.
Commissioner Kushney?
Abstain.
Commissioner Kikuchi?
Yes.
Commissioner Kawada?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdams?
Yes.
Commissioner Papalimu?
No.
Commissioner Takanaka?
Yes.
Chair Curtis?
Yes. The meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much. See you next month. Well, we will discuss the chain of custody next month. Thank you.